Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our next episode of the McFin Forum, where we discuss important topics with practitioners, professionals from the African continent. Today, I'm talking to a good friend of mine, Patrick. Welcome on board.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here, Mr. Okunzo. It's actually a pleasure to be on the McFin Forum. This is my first time, even though I've been following the forum a lot. I've been listening to other people present themselves on this forum. So it's a pleasure for me, and I actually pledge to dish out a lot, which I believe would be interesting to our viewers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you making time to come on the platform and discuss with us. Now, just a background: who is Patrick, and how did you get to where you are?
Thank you for that. Patrick, I'll start by saying Patrick is a humble guy, and my career spans over a decade. Not only in insurance. Actually, I started my career as an engineer because I'm an engineer, a civil engineer, and I actually have practiced engineering. And how I got to insurance, I think it's actually going to be a discussion on its own.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, I found myself in this noble profession, and I think it has been so far so good. And my transition to insurance actually came about when my interactions with the multinational I used to work for, the multinational engineering company I used to work for, we used to interact because I was in charge. I grew up the ranks of being the technical director in the company, and I was opportune to meet up all our partners, government officials who would come do site visits or do their controls, bankers, insurers, and all the likes. So in the process, I actually came across an insurer who I was actually assigned to show them around the project. Then I took a keen interest. The questions they asked me, I had to go back and actually research on them. But why is this? That was actually my first time of hearing
So did you discover that insurers actually more know engineering than you guys?
Of course, and that's not only it.
Yeah.
Before then, I had just known about motor insurance and the other compulsory insurances that exist. But then, with that question or with that particular encounter, it was actually intriguing when the person actually made mention of the fact that yes, even engineers are into the insurance industry. And I said, wow, okay. Without even giving it a second thought, I dismissed the idea, and we continued with our discussion, and they went back, and later on management called me and told me that, wow, you did a good job, and we happened to save, or we happened to have a good coverage. I didn't actually understand. But anyway, I was just doing my job, just like I always do.
Yeah.
And later on again, I was asked again to go accompany a banker. Then, of course, I knew if a banker is coming to visit the site, it's obviously because of financial issues or financial obligations which the company might want to engage in. So then I asked, what is it all about? They said, yes, they want to give a loan to the company to do this or that, to expand. And then I asked, but what are the risks involved apart from them defaulting? Yeah, aren't you afraid of the fact that what if something happens, there's a huge incident that would actually come to stifle the company not repaying your loan? Then they told me, yes, that's why there is an insurance coverage, which we always look at. Then I actually, at that point, did the link between what the other person told me and what the banker is telling me at that point. So it was actually an eye-opening experience for me. And then I went later on, did a comprehensive research. And then I found what insurance is all about. At that point, I think I actually grew a thought on insurance, which I think I've been watering from then till now.
Yeah. What a transition. So, do you find it more interesting now that you are wearing a white shirt and a jacket and sitting in an office, or you still think doing the hard work out there is more
fulfilling?
Yeah, more fulfilling, yeah.
Okay. Simba, thank you for that. It's actually a tricky question. You're trying to find out my spot. But I'll tell you, each of them have their personal fulfillment, and insurance actually comes to complement that, because there are moments, even as an insurer or a reinsurer, which I am now, I still get to remove the jacket and the shirt and put on my personal protective equipment to go on the field, to control, to do risk surveys and all the likes. So I think there is still that link between what I am doing now and what I used to do. And I have a growing knowledge for learning new things. I have a growing aspiration. I want to learn new things. So that has never stopped me from learning the new trends, both in the insurance and the construction sector. Because we always say innovation never stops. And so us as humans, we need to stay abreast of the new trends that are coming our way. And that can only make me a better underwriter in my current role.
So the insurance office gives you an opportunity to live both lives. You dress up and wear the nice suits, and you also take the hard hat and go on the field.
Of course.
Yes. Now, picking onto that, I get a sense of saying, when you do your studies for engineering, you are doing all these complicated technicalities, but the element of risk, somehow it's not so glaring to you until you encounter, these bankers and insurers. Is that how the studies go, or it was done, but you never thought it was that important?
The element of risk always is present in the engineering studies, and in fact, in every aspect of life. And engineers actually are solution providers. And the difference which I think actually exists between engineering and insurance is that for engineers, their works can be seen. You see the structures, you see the bridges, and it gives you that feeling that you've achieved something which you can see. Unlike insurance, where all what you're doing is you're selling a promise. And so at the end of it all, apart from you just saying what you've done, if it's not said, you can never see what you've achieved. And so, but at the bottom line of it all is, regardless of what you see or not, there is that element of risk. And because engineers are solution providers, they always factor that part. In our engineering studies, there's always a factor of safety. Now, it comes to actually, tell you that even if something happens and you consider this might actually go to sustain that risk if it occurs.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a lot of respect for engineers. And I think most of the engineers that I know are very, very intelligent, very smart people. And one thing that I've noticed about engineers is that you guys, you think quite differently from everyone else. Do you find that to be a problem now that you're in the office and you are sitting with a lot of guys who are from the commercial background, from other science background, in terms of methodology, how you work, how you approach problems?
Yeah, our studies, I think for me personally, I am an open-minded person. And so wherever I find myself, I try to adapt with respect to how it operates. And so given the fact that engineers are not, the majority in the insurance sector, it also came as an opportunity for me to learn what the insurers do. And part of marketing, commercialization, and all what was part of it. And I had to go down and learn the process, as much as just to actually blend myself in. And to me, it has been a fascinating experience, which every day I still go down and learn the process day after day. Yeah. So I don't see it as any challenge nor any issue, but for me, I see it as an opportunity, which each and every engineer should always consider.
Yeah. So you are involved in a lot of construction projects, property insurance, and so forth. Are you happy with the quality of work that is done around Africa? Now, as an engineer, when you're looking at it from an insurance point of view and a risk point of view, are you happy with the quality of work that you see out there?
Yes, I would say I'm happy. There has been a lot of improvement, given the fact that we've been borrowing technology from the West. We've seen how our companies in Africa have been growing, how they've been adapting new technologies, and so you would actually see the difference, and it's clear. You would look at structures that were designed 10, 20 years ago and structures that are being designed now, you would see a marked difference. It's visible. So it's something which actually shows that we are actually in a continuous train of improvement. And I only can bet for sure that in the next 20, 30 years, we will have a lot of African engineers building Africa.
And do we have enough skills in the engineering space and even within the insurance sector to do adequate risk assessments on engineering projects?
I think so far we have the skills, but to say if it's adequate or enough, I think there is still more that is needed. Yeah. And so we always need to actually attract new talents, because if premium is growing, for example, and economies are growing, so therefore would talents be needed to actually match up these growing economies. Yeah. And so I feel personally, more talents are needed to actually bridge that gap.
Yeah. And would you encourage other engineers to join us in the insurance sector?
Yes, I'm going to encourage a lot of engineers, those who are passionate about joining the insurance sector, to do so. Why? Because it presents another level of opportunity. If you are a goal or an objective person who likes to experience new things, then insurance sector should be one area of consideration. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I am a member of an association of engineers in insurance, and the main goal is just to promote new talent and to promote good engineering practices in insurance. Okay. So we believe that in the next couple of years, it's going to grow and it's actually going to, contribute its own quota to the penetration rates of insurance in Africa.
Very interesting. Now, if I'm an engineer sitting out there, I'm wondering, what would I be doing wearing a white shirt and a black jacket? What is your day-to-day like? If you had to say to someone, there's interesting stuff here. What's your day-to-day like? What do you get to do in the office? What do you get to do outside the office?
Yeah, I would like to ask, my current role, I am an underwriting manager for WSAFE, and on a daily basis, I receive risk, both engineering and non-engineering risk. And from my engineering background or perspective, or my analytical skills, I look in depth into the risk itself. Every day, if there are risk survey reports, I study them, look at the critical areas. With my experience in an industrial company, I know the type of areas or the type of things I should look out for. So on a daily basis, I actually do analyze risk. I do quotations. talk to clients, and if possible, where necessary, actually carry out risk surveys for the companies to actually see how to improve on the risk management of the particular insured or the prospect.
Okay. And so currently, where are you sitting, your office?
Currently, I am in Cameroon, but I actually shovel between Cameroon and Ghana. So I'm in between Cameroon and Ghana.
Yes, and I get to meet you almost every other place. You do travel a lot, which brings my next question. What is your general observation in terms of the countries and the wider market where you do business, which is the entire African continent? Are there major differences that you see from region to region, from country to country, in terms of practice, in terms of cultural aspects that you think, wow, this is interesting, or I wish I don't get involved in this again?
Yes, of course. With my little travel experience and knowledge of the African market, I have experienced a lot. And one of those things I've seen when it comes to insurance in particular is I find that regulatory frameworks are different from country to country and also from region to region. The northern region has its own regulatory framework which applies to the northern African region. The southern African has its own, and even at that, each individual country would actually go further to actually set up its own regulatory framework, which is going to be applied in that particular country. We would see differences such as value-added tax on reinsurance premium. We would see legal sessions vary from country to country, which therefore actually helps to retain reinsurance premium in that country. We have a lot of things, and for French African countries who are actually under the Simba regulatory framework, we would notice a lot of changes, which if an insurer from the southern part actually wants to look at it, sounds or seems to be different. So all these things actually come with a variation, and to me, it actually brings now the issue of the challenges that these face, because you happen to be in a single company, but yet you are bound to know the regulatory frameworks of all the other countries where you operate from.
And that's a major challenge, but that's also a point of strength if you are able to navigate that space.
Exactly. So in addition to that, cultural changes would also affect what we see. There are some regions which would carry out certain insurance policies. Meanwhile, others, they are still struggling to come up with those concepts. One of those emerging product lines or insurance policies is actually agri insurance, where in the French African states, especially in West and Central Africa, that is still struggling to actually be implemented. There are a lot of countries like Cameroon, where you would hardly find a single insurance policy in the entire market. So there's a lot of improvement, even though, a country like Cameroon falls under the equatorial rainforest, which means it can actually produce, or it produces a lot, but that particular class of insurance is not being exploited. So we believe in the near future, such policies would be integrated so as much as to actually improve on the confidence of insurance, not only in that particular country, but to the entire African continent.
And that ties up with the issue that you mentioned previously about insurance penetration. So I see that from what you're mentioning here, there's actually much greater scope for us to increase the insurance penetration, because there's so much that is not catered for. Are there other areas that you have observed or other ideas that you think, if the continent could do A, B, C, D, I think there would be a huge improvement in terms of our insurance penetration.
Yes, I think we need to also focus our efforts on improving on the micro insurance products across Africa. We must have seen how micro insurance products, which is actually meant to cater for the low income in those respective areas, are mostly commercialized in the city centers. So the distribution channels, you would see that it's limited, and they do not go to the suburbs, where that is actually, if these stakeholders actually look into that particular channel, would actually increase the penetration. Now the issue remains on how can we go about that. This is something which it's still open for discussion, and everyone is looking forward to actually break that.
Can we leave that to engineers, because you guys are the solution providers? Can we trust engineers to come with a solution here?
Yes, you can trust engineers. You can trust engineers. Yes.
Yeah. There's one problematic issue, and I think all the markets have tried so hard to solve this. I'm sure at some point we'll find a solution. You are involved in a lot of construction projects. When they come to Africa, they already come packaged, and most of the time they're just looking for a fronting partner in Africa. How do we get out of that? Or is there some way, is there some part of the process and chain that us as players in the African market we miss, so that we are always late to the table?
This is quite a complicated question, where it's difficult to actually give a concise answer because of the particularities of such contracts. Why? Because the funding mostly comes from out of Africa to come and fund projects or developmental projects in Africa. So it's actually challenging for us to actually have a full grip of those policies. But however, I feel regulation can set in to actually define how such policies could be managed. Now, I believe if the regulators define how they could be managed, we would see improvement in that sector, and we no longer see it as a challenge, but an opportunity to the local insurance market. Of course, there are other markets that are actually satisfying one of such conditions by ensuring that you do satisfy the market first of all before you can externalize the coverage.
Yeah, on that point, I think I can safely say we can trust engineers to come with solutions. Thanks a lot, Patrick, for giving us, such interesting insights. Very good information there, and I'm sure everyone who wants to have further discussions with you can find you. We'll also drop your contacts here. I'm sure there are more people who want to engage more with you. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Thank you, Simba. It was a pleasure for me to be here, and thank the Mokfin Group for hosting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.